So in this module, we're going to dig a little bit deeper into our camera stock, and we're going to be covering the Blackmagic URSA minis that we have. So first up, we've got our tripod. It's the GH10L that we covered before. And inside of that tripod bag, we've got a zipper that's on the inside of the pouch. You open up the zipper, and inside you have the quick release plate. Now this is already pre-installed with the tripod plate on the bottom. And you just want to double check that to make sure that it's on there nice and firm. The last thing you want to do is get this on there and then the camera's all shaky and you got to take the whole thing off. First, put this quick release plate onto the tripod. And this is a V-mount quick release plate. And we can tell it's got the V right in there, V. And what we're going to do is we're going to put this on, and we can tell that the circle at the back is for the back of the camera and the V is for the front. All right, so we're just going to slide this onto the tripod and we're going to tighten down the quick release plate lock. Make sure it's good and tight and that the camera release plate is not moving. We're going to come over to our Pelican case that houses our Blackmagic kit. This is labeled Kit 1. Open this up. All right, now inside we have our cheat sheet for how to pack this. It tells you exactly everything that should be in the kit and how to pack it back. Now, first order of business is we're going to get the camera body onto the tripods. Take out one of these. And it's very important that you're careful with this. If you look at the bottom, it already has the other half of that quick release installed. And we just want to check the bottom, check that screw and make sure that it is good and snug as well so that the camera is not moving on that plate. All right, so this feels good and secure. So this goes onto the quick release plate, and you'll notice that the V is at the front where the lens goes. So this is going to go on. We're going to line up that circle at the back, and this just slides forward until you hear it click. All right, so now we have our camera body installed onto the quick release plate. Next up, we're going to get an Israeli arm. We're gonna get an Israeli arm out of our kit, and that is right here at the top part of it. All right, so an Israeli arm, when it comes out, it has this lock that's in the middle. And when it's locked, the arms don't move. So we're going to loosen the lock, which frees up the motion of the Israeli arms. And on this particular one, we have two different sizes on it. So it's got one that's the 1/4 inch and one that's the 1/8 inch screws. So that 1/4 inch is going to go into the cheese plate, and this is the top part of this has a cheese plate installed. And they call it a cheese plate because it looks like Swiss cheese. And every single one of these holes is a place where we can mount not just an Israeli arm, but many other things. And the other end of this is going to be SHOGUN, so we need to make sure that we have the smaller end free. So we're going to take the larger end, we're going to screw that into this cheese plate. And so what I'm going to do is extend it out. I'm actually going to lock the Israeli arm, and I'm going to line it up with one of these larger holes. And tighten it down until it's nice and snug. Don't want to strip it, I don't want to go too far, but I do want to make sure that it's on there nice and tight. All right, so next we're going to grab the Atmos Shoguns, which is the black box with the white zipper. Now when you open this up, we have the Atmos is on one half, and then we have our hookups on the other. So we have our SDI cable and power and our audio connections. So first, we're going to take out the Atmos. And these Atmoses take a cartridge. They take a solid state drive cartridge that I have pre-installed onto this one, but this comes out. And so you need to make sure that you pack for these. Say Atmos 4K, and you'll see the G drive symbol up at the top, along with SSD, that's for solid state drive. That goes into the side here. And then we take this, and this screws on to the top of the Israeli arm. All right, we screw this on, and it doesn't go all the way, but there is the hot shoe lock here at the bottom. We're gonna screw that, make sure that we have a good, firm grip on that utmost, but we're not going too hard that we're gonna break something. Here we can undo the lock, and now we can adjust this monitor to sit in a way that is convenient for us. And we're gonna go over more of this on how to set this up once we get everything put together, because we need to balance the camera. Now these take EF mount lenses, so we have several different options, but in the kit, we do have a 35 millimeter, a 24 millimeter, 50, and an 85. For this demonstration, we're going to use the 50. Now these are the Rokinon Cine lenses, and it is labeled 50 millimeter. All right, so I'm going to take this out. And for housekeeping purposes, what I always do is when I put the lens on, you push in on the silver tab and then twist to open the sensor cap. You take the cap off the back and you line up the red dots. Red dot, red dot. Two line up together very carefully. They should go in nice and snug, and then you twist until you hear the click. Now I have two pieces here that are very easy to lose. And so what I do is I put the two together, and then I take these and I put them into the lens bag that it came from. That way it's back in the kit, we know where it is. It is so easy to lose these. Cannot stress that enough. Just put it back in the lens bag, that way we all know where it is. Okay, so next up we're gonna cover the follow focus. For the follow focus, we need to take two of the 15 millimeter rails, and those install right onto the quick release mount. Here and here. And then we tighten that down using this lock. Doesn't take much, just a couple turns. Don't need to tighten that down really hard. Just make sure that these are nice and firmly in place. Okay, next up, we're gonna actually grab our follow focus. And this is our follow focus. Now what this does is this interfaces with the lens. And he has two locks. We've got the lock on the bottom, which lets you go left and right. Then we have the lock on the side, which releases the rod locks. So this guy slides onto the two 15 millimeter rods, and it's important that we loosened up both of those so that we can slide it back and forth, and we can also go forward and back with it. All right, and so what this does is this gear lines right up with the grooves in our lens. So we need to take this back, line it up with the grooves, slide it in until it locks and connects. All right. And then we're going to tighten down both of our locks. Now you see right here, you're gonna think that this is broken because I'm turning it and it just keeps going. All I need to do is hold this washer, allow it to thread up. There we go. So what the follow focus does for you is it gives you a big knob to control your focus with. Now with these lenses, there's no zoom on them, they're prime lenses. So it's okay to have the follow focus over here, and you might be operating the camera like so. So next up is batteries. So we've got two kinds of batteries that we got to worry about. First up is our V-mount batteries. Now these are the batteries for the camera itself. We got two different kinds. They do the exact same thing. So we've got the Haglink PL96s, and we also have the Indy Pro PD95S. Both of these do the same thing. They both have a way to check how much battery life is left on them. On the ND Pro, you have the button on the side, you hit the button, it lights up. All right, so that's fully charged. On the PAG Link, it's got the button at the front. All right, so you just hit that button, it'll pop up and tell you how much battery life you have left. And a cool thing about the PAG Link is that if you got two, you can stack them. So these guys will actually just stack together. You hear it click. Very cool. You can actually do that while the camera's running. So if you see that the camera's about to die, you can go run and grab another battery and just pop it right on, and then the camera will keep going. Now to release that, it's got the button at the top. So you hit the button and then you can take them back apart. For the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to use the ND Pro, and this goes right on the back of the camera. So we line up the V, right? We've got the V here. Right, so we've got the V mount here. We've got the V of the battery. So you just line those up, slide them together until they're locked in place. Now let's say we wanted to get this off. On the other side there is the battery release. So you push in the battery release and pull the battery up, and you can release the battery. All right, now our other battery that we need is we need a battery for the Shogun. These batteries are these 2-prong batteries. So you have 2 pins here, and on all of these you'll see 7.4 written on them. That's because we have 7.2s, we have 7.4s. For the Shoguns, it is very important that we're using the 7.4. The reason being is if you put the 7.2s in there, it will work, but they will die incredibly fast. And so these guys line up about the halfway point. You line up with the ridges that are there, and you push it in. Oh, right. Same with the top, and it's important that you make sure that it's lined up and flat, because it's very easy to get these things crooked and think that it's in there and it's off just a little bit and it's not actually making contact with both pins. So about the halfway point, push it down, make sure that it's flat against the base, and push it till it clicks. Okay? All right, so we've got batteries for both. Next, we need to hook up our SDI cable. So we're going back into the Shogun case, and we're gonna grab our SDI cable, and we're gonna grab our audio cable. This is our XLR adapter. At the back side of the Shogun, we have 3 SDI ports, right? And these are SDI in, SDI out, and time code. All right, so what you wanna do is you wanna take this SDI cable, put it over the receptacle, and you spin the head until the cable falls into place. All right, once it's in, you then twist it clockwise until you feel it lock. Once it's locked, that cable's in there, it's not coming out. Once you're packing up, it's important that you remember to unlock it counterclockwise, and it just comes right out. You should never have to force this cable on or off. It just goes on, it slides on, and then it locks in place. Now the other end of this cable is going to go into the camera, and it's going to go into the SDI out port. And same thing. All right, and then we have our XLR adapter. Just like with our lenses, we have a red dot and we have a red dot. Match the 2 dots, and that just pushes right on. Another one that you should not have to force. That also locks into place. Now to get this one out, it's a little bit trickier. You have to take the barrel connector, pull it up, and then pull out. So pull up there and then pull it out. Okay. Now the other end of this is 2 XLRs. Right is red, left is black. That's for hooking up your audio to the Shogun. All right, so now that we have everything hooked up, it's important to balance the camera. Now, if you recall from the GH10L module, down here at the bottom, we had our counterweight. So we have our drag control, and I'm gonna unlock it now. I have our tilt lock and pan lock. All right, and I am now fully unlocked. All right, and I've got my drag control here. Take it to a 1. But from here, it is important that we balance the camera. So we have that counterweight, and the default for this counterweight is 4. So if we have that counterweight at 4, we're saying that's the middle. Okay, and right now this camera is just way too front heavy. All the weight is loaded at the front. And I'm gonna try and balance that with taking the Shogun, undoing the arm and pulling that monitor back. All right, so now that weight is distributed much more evenly. But I'm gonna go a little bit further. I'm gonna undo the quick release plate. And I'm gonna slide the whole mount back just a little bit. All right, this whole thing, when I let go, it should stay where it's at. All right, so now I'm gonna use this counterweight to get me the rest of the way. So if I'm holding it, push it down, it's coming back up. So I let go, it goes forward, so I need to adjust it again. Okay. All right, so that is a balanced camera. So now that we're fully set up and our camera is balanced, we're ready to turn on the camera. Now to do that, we're going to open the LCD panel, open it up, and we have our on button here. We're going to press that, count to 5, then let go. And at this point, we can also take off the lens cap. Now when we take off the lens cap, it's important to keep track of these things. So as I said in the previous module, what I always do is put this in my back pocket, or take it back to the kit and put it into the lens bag with the other covers. All right, and so now we're gonna turn on the Shogun. And to turn on the Shogun, you push the button up here, push it, count to 3, let go. Should see a red light come on. It takes just a minute to boot up. Now with this, I'm actually gonna adjust the screen a little bit. Just gonna tilt it over. So I adjusted the screen so that I can hold the follow focus and look at the screen at the same time. Once we get the Shogun turned on, it's very easy. All we have to do is hit record, and we're recording. We'll see the red border around the screen. That lets us know that we're recording, and we also see the time code is running. I'm gonna stop this really quick because it's important that we make sure that on our camera menu, depending on the project, some projects we might want to shoot 4K, most projects we're going to want to shoot 1080, but in order to change that, we hit the menu on the Blackmagic. So we have ProRes and we have RAW. Now, for us, we really want to record in ProRes, and down here we have, HD, Ultra HD, which is 3840 by 2160. Typically, we're going to either switch between Ultra HD or HD. Get with your supervising producer to find out which one of these we're going to be using for the project. With this camera, all of your settings for your ISO and your white balance are all done through the touchscreen. So to adjust the ISO, you actually tap ISO, and then you can adjust it from here. 200, 400, 800, 1600. Now with these cameras, they have a higher dynamic range, and they handle higher ISOs better. but always get with your supervising producer to find out what setting we're going to put this on. Your white balance, just like with your other cameras, right, has your presets here. Or you can slide the scale to manually adjust it. You also have, that's for custom white balance, and you also have auto white balance. Auto white balance is where you would hold up a white card, just like with the other cameras. Focus on a white card and hit update white balance, and that will update the white balance based on the current lighting conditions. Next up, we have frames per second. We tap that. We always want to be on 2997. And then the shutter, we hit the menu button on the side and we tap setup. We can actually change it from shutter angle to shutter speed. Go back, we can hit shutter, and again, the higher the number for the shutter speed, the less motion blur, but the darker the image. The lower the number, the brighter the image, but the more motion blur we get. Depending on what we are shooting, we will adjust the shutter speed. Ideally, we want to leave it starting out at 60, which is double the frame rate. So another thing in the white balance screen is that we also have tint down here at the bottom, and the tint is the amount of green and purple that we are adding to our white balance. Typically, I want to leave this at about a 10. All right, and then down at the bottom, it tells us the codec that we're recording in, ProRes HQ, and our resolution is HD. We could change that by hitting the menu button and going up to record, and we could change this from ProRes HQ to 422. We could shoot in RAW. Down here at the bottom, we can also choose our resolution, Ultra HD, 4.6K, 2K 16:9. For everything we're doing here, we're gonna stick with HD 1920 by 1080. And I'm gonna go back up to my Shogun, and up at the top, it says 1080p HD. The Shogun is also touchscreen. So if I touch where it says 1080p 2997, it'll pull up the input sources. I really don't want to worry about that right now. All right, we just want to make sure that record says the same thing as what our supervisor producer told us to do. All right, so if we were to select on the camera Ultra HD, the Shogun is going to switch over to 4K UHD. I'm going to go back to HD. This is 1080p 2997. All right, the other thing to know about this, if you touch the audio bars down here, you can actually see the audio that's going. Right now we have the audio that's coming through the camera, but if we'd hook these guys up, you'd see the same audio coming through here. If we had audio options, if we actually had a microphone hooked up to here, we would select audio in and we would set it to mic level, and then we would adjust the audio gain to where our audio was peaking right at about -12. So we want yellow, but not orange, and definitely not red. So if it goes all the way to red, we get clipped, distorted audio. So we want to make sure that our audio levels are hanging out right around the -12 decibels. Conversely, if we were to hook up into an audio board, like if we were at a music venue and we wanted to do a backup audio, we hooked up to their board to get a board feed, we'd want to change our audio in to line level. And we would want to do the same thing. We would want to adjust the gain with this plus and minus for that channel, right? We have left and right. Remember, red is right and black is left. We'd want to adjust that gain level for that side so that our audio was coming up to -12. All right, so to get out of this, we're just going to hit the X. We typically want to make sure that this monitor mode is set to Rec 709. That's the color space. Now, sometimes your supervisor producer will want to shoot what is called log, right? And so we'll choose the log to video option. Now, what that does, if you see the screen, right, it brought the black levels up quite a bit, and it brings the white levels down, so it looks like a really washed out image. And that's so that we can color it in post and have the maximum amount of dynamic range when we're color correcting it. So dynamic range is the amount of stops you get from light to dark. The higher the stops, the more information you're able to capture in the lows and the highs. Typically, you're going to want to make sure that this is just set to Rec 709 so that we can see our shot. So I'm going to go ahead and roll on this. So just to show the follow focus here, you twist back towards yourself for yourself to bring towards you, and you twist away from you to take the focus away from you. It's very intuitive. Back and forth. Now these are Rokinon Cine lenses, so they get a very filmic look with them. They are primes, so you have the limitation of not being able to zoom. Now the other thing to know about these lenses is that it is a manual aperture. So your follow focus is hooked up to your focus ring. Your aperture is a manual one, so you have to come in and physically change that. So let's take a look at that. So with our aperture, you have to actually adjust the aperture to change exposure. Just remember, it's always better to underexpose than it is to overexpose. But in here in the studio, even at a 1.6, we're not really getting too overexposed on this particular image. When you get overexposed and things go to white, it's when you lose detail. All right, and that is the Blackmagic URSA Mini Kit.